Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa McNeil and I am here to talk to you and inform you about a cleft lip and palate. Our son Bowen was born with a cleft lip and palate, and before I found out about him I had no idea what it really even was. And so I hope to inform people about it and to tell them about my experience because it wasn't as bad as it seems to be when you first find out about it. We found out about Bowen's cleft at our 20-week ultrasound. According to the Craniofacial Foundation of Utah, clefts occur somewhere between 1 in 500 to 1 in 2,000 births, depending on the race of the parents. There can be two different types of clefts. There can be unilateral or bilateral. A unilateral cleft is just one side of the nose, and a bilateral is both sides of the nose, or the lip. And Bowen had a bilateral, so it went up both sides. Luckily, it didn't go all the way through up into his nose. It stopped right here before it could get up into it. The gum line can also be affected from the cleft. Bowen's is as well, but same thing, it doesn't go all the way through like it could have. It just has little tiny like notches in it, kind of. That can affect later his teeth coming in. And at this point where we are now, he is missing one tooth from it, but the others are there. So just missing one, which is okay for baby teeth because once they can repair that, then like you do a bone graft so that his adult tooth can grow down into it. Then the palate can also be affected from it. The hard and soft palate were both affected on Bowen. The hard palate is for the front of the roof of your mouth, fill with your tongue, and then the back is the soft palate. And he had a cleft all the way through the hard and the soft. According to the CDC, the causes of orophacial clefts among most infants are unknown. Some children have a cleft lip or cleft palate because of changes in their genes. Cleft lip and cleft palate are thought to be caused by a combination of genes and other factors such as things the mother comes in contact with in her environment, or what the mother eats or drinks, or certain medications she uses during pregnancy. I was so mad at myself when we first found out because I thought that it was my fault. It wasn't, though. Just by doing more research, you see that it's caused by drinking and smoking during pregnancy, which wasn't an issue for me, and also taking seizure medicines, which also wasn't for me. So it had to either be random or genes. So we went to a genetic counselor and to be tested to see if it was genetic or not. As far as my husband and myself know, we have no history of clefts on either side of our family. So by doing this genetic test, then we were able to find out that it wasn't genetic and we just were random. We were the 1 in 500 to the 1 in 2,000 people. At the time, I was teaching school and I was pregnant, and I told my students that my little boy had a cleft so that when they saw pictures, they were like, "What is that?" And I had one little boy, he raised his hand and he said, "So Mrs. McNeil, you're 1 in 500 people?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's so lucky." And he is right, I was lucky. And at the time when I first found out, I didn't think I was, but it is. It's been an amazing and wonderful learning experience. I wouldn't want to do it again, but it's been a great experience. So the Craniofacial Foundation of Utah also states that most commonly 50% of the time the cleft patient has components of both cleft lip and palate. Bowen did have cleft lip and palate. They weren't able to see the palate in the ultrasound because they couldn't get the ultrasound back far enough, so they were only able to see the lip. But once he was born, they saw, and he did have a cleft palate as well, which we figured he did especially because he had the bilateral cleft. So here is our next step in the process after he was born. Is a thing called the NAM. And a NAM is it's kind of like a retainer, and it went all along his gums and covered the roof of his mouth like his palate would. The NAM is this little thing, as you can see, and it helps to stretch everything and pull it together. So it's preparing him for surgery so that the results will be better. If they were to just do surgery right then, all of his skin would be tight and it would just be pulled like this. Whereas doing the NAM and taping his cheeks, you can see how tight they're pulled in and stretching that skin. It helps in the long run so that everything's not pulled tight on his face. The second thing they added to the NAM were these nasal stents, and they went up into his nose. Same thing with the cheeks. that it's helping push the nose up so that it's not pulling it all tight together when they repair it. And it's also helping it make it more round because it was a little bit more flat when he was born, because it was all separated. It wasn't pulled together like it should have been. This is just a picture to show you that it's already been making progress. If you remember that first picture, his lip was kind of up a little bit. These tapes stayed on his cheeks for a few days. We just had to use a washcloth to wash around his face. They're really, really sticky, and so to take them on and off every day would really hurt that little tiny fresh baby skin. And so there were even a few times when we took it off, it was bloody underneath. So we didn't change those very often, and we just changed the white tapes every day when we took out the NAM. The NAM stayed in for 23 out of 24 hours of the day, and it just had to be taken out to be cleaned and to put more glue in there. A fun fact, we had to use denture glue is what it was. Here's just another picture, different angles so that you can see the nasal stents better up there in his nose. Again, his cheeks are pulled nice and tight. You can see in the crevices right there. And then here's just a picture to show you the progress, that it's made such a huge difference in just those few weeks. Here's another progress picture. I love this because this is when he was born, and this was just about when he was 7-8 weeks old. And it's made that big of a difference in just that time. The NAM is truly an amazing thing. And we'll forever be grateful for the pediatric dentist and orthodontist that did this for him. He works with our cleft team all together, and it's a wonderful part of that cleft team. So Bowen's first surgery was at 3.5 months old. They repaired his lip, as you can see. They had to keep these nasal stents in to help keep the shape of the nose because it wasn't used to being that way. They're stitched in so they wouldn't fall out. He had to keep these arm things on so that he wasn't pulling and grabbing at that. And he couldn't put things in his mouth because they made a uvula for him in the back of his, at the back of his soft palate, and they put in a prosthesis that covered his hard palate so that he had a palate and it wasn't just an open mouth with stuff going everywhere. His next surgery was at 1 year old, and they repaired the soft palate then. Babies really start talking when they're around 1, a little bit before then, but the soft palate helps them to talk, and so that's the key time to repair that soft palate. This one was a little bit harder because he was more aware, and I was more afraid of this one, I think because of that same reason, but he did really, really good. His next surgery won't be till he's about 3.5 or 4, and that's when they'll close his hard palate. They don't close the hard palate until then because it's been proven that let's say this cleft was this wide when he was born, well, once he's 4, it will only be this wide. So it will move closer together, so it's kind of repairing itself. So then when they go to sew it together, then it's less pulling, same principle as less pulling on his skin. Here's my sweet boy today, and he's happy, healthy little boy, and it's made me realize that this cleft process hasn't been as scary and daunting as I thought it was going to be when we first found out, and that's what I hope to inform people about, is to tell them that it's not as scary as it appears to be, and that it is doable, and it's a process, but it's a learning process, and it hasn't been a bad one. And so one of my hopes is to inform you of that. If you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them. Thank you.